I don't think you determine what your purpose is. I think you discover what your purpose is. There's a difference. I believe my purpose is doing what I'm doing. Your purpose is why you get out of bed in the morning. Do you know why you get up? Well, most people say, well, it's to go to work. Well, that'd be a good reason to stay in bed. You know, you say, well, everybody's doing it. That'd be another reason to stay in bed. If you're ever doing what everybody's doing, you're probably going in the wrong direction. Your purpose is your reason for living. And my purpose is to live and work in a prosperous environment that encourages productivity and pleasure, so that I might provide more service to my family, my company, my community, my nation, and ultimately in the world. But you see, when I first discovered this, it took me a while to really articulate it, but I realized the cleaning business was almost incidental. What I was enjoying, what I loved to do, was helping the cleaners set goals, help them get jobs. An interesting story on this. My daughter, Colleen, when she first started working years ago, she got a job at an IT place. And she'd come home and I'd be asking her about her job and she'd tell me it was pretty exciting. And she brought home a newsletter from her company. And I was reading it. It was kind of interesting. And I saw the editor of the news magazine was Bessie Tamaris. And I wonder, Tamaris is not a common name to me. In Greece it might be pretty common, or Macedonia, but I said, Colleen, when you go to work tomorrow, ask Bessie Tamaris if her dad's name was Marinus. And she come back a couple of days later. Oh my God, she says, you'll never believe, Dad. That's Bessie's dad. He's dead now. But her mother told her all kinds of things about you. Marinus Tamaris was cleaning offices for $1 an hour when I met him. He could not drive a car. I got him into his own business. I got him into it. I told him if he'd buy a car, I'd teach him how to drive it. I'd get up at 5 in the morning, go out and teach him how to drive it. And I helped him build his cleaning business. See, that was what I loved doing. And Maris went on, he owned 2 or 3 fast food businesses. He owned a cleaning business. He owned a number of businesses. He became a very wealthy man. I really loved helping people become aware of their potential. Because you see, when I looked at my life, I was in England, and I was earning all kinds of money, and I was in such a great position. I was living just a charmed life. And I thought, wow, if I could do this, anybody could do it. And all I wanted to do was teach people how to do it.
Yeah, my story is kind of not that different to a lot of people, to be honest. I had a good career in advertising and was working on new business pitches and stuff for the company I work for. And I lived through September 11th in New York. And, you know, September 11th affected many people in different ways. And one of the things it did to me was it made me feel like my job was stupid. You know, like, I remember trying to come, and my office was really close to Ground Zero, and I remember coming back to work when we were allowed to, because the area was closed for a few weeks. I remember going back to the office just thinking, what value am I providing here? Like this industry and my job are ridiculously stupid, you know? And so I already had an eye on sort of doing something else, and I had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I considered myself more of a marketer than an advertiser anyway. And so I quit and started my own business with a partner, and went to do something that I thought was in my vision, you know, not theirs. And it went really well for 3 years. I mean, when I say well, meaning we survived.
Right.
It's never like that, you know. It was more like that. But we did okay. You know, there's over 90% of all small businesses fail in the first 3 years, and we made it.
You didn't, right?
And we didn't. So I mean, like that's like that. We joined a very elite club, you know. But year 4 was very different for me. I had already bought out my partner, and I completely lost my passion for what I was doing. And I didn't know why. And people say stupid things to you like, follow your passion. You're like, I'm doing the same thing and I don't love it anymore. Like, do what you love. You're like, same thing, you know? So I was confused as to what it was. Plus I was embarrassed because superficially my life was pretty good. I made a decent living. We had amazing clients. Like, we had blue chip clients that we had no business having at our little company. We did great work, well respected by our clients, and yet I didn't feel it. And so I was very embarrassed by the fact that it's like, you know, I'm unhappy, you know, it's like everything looks just fine, you know? So I didn't talk about it. And I would say that all of my energy, instead of going into building my business, all of my energy went into pretending that I was happier, more successful, and more in control than I actually felt, which is a pretty dark space.
Yeah. But you're the leader of that organization, so you have to put that.
And so you put on this air that
Yeah.
you got everything under control, and your family asks you how you are, and everything's under control. And you know, I would go to business conferences to learn how to like build my business, and that actually made me feel worse because I'd have all these people standing on the stage telling us how we should build our businesses, and all I could hear was everything I was doing wrong, as opposed to what I should be doing. And so it actually made me feel even more depressed. And it wasn't until a good friend came to me, concerned about me. She saw that there was something different, and she was worried for me. And I remember the conversation. She was very nervous, sort of coming to me, but like, you know, trying to approach, basically challenging you, like your life is not as you claim it is. And it really allowed me to admit that I was unhappy. And that gave me the courage to find a solution. The fact that I had a friend in my corner who was there that I could cry to and say, I don't know if I can do this, gave me courage to find a solution. And I was very lucky. There was a confluence of events that happened around the same time. Long story short, I was able to discover that this natural occurring pattern, based on the biology of human decision making, that every single organization on the planet exists on the same three levels: what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. Everybody knows what they do. I knew what I did. Some people know how they do it. I could tell you what made me different or special or stand out from my competitors, but I couldn't tell you why. And so I realized, until I was able to articulate that piece, that my life was out of balance. Everything was out of balance. So I was obsessed with this thing called the why. Figured out how to find my why, restored my passion to levels I'd never experienced before, unbelievable. Did what anybody would do or does when you find something beautiful. You share it with the people you love. And that's what I did. So I shared it with my friends. And my friends started making crazy life changes. And they would invite me to their homes to share it with the people they loved. And I would literally, it all started, I would stand in someone's living room in New York City, and people would sit on the floor, and I would give this talk about the why. That's how it all began. And people just kept inviting me to do it. And I would help people find their why for $100 on the side. You know, that's how it started. So there was never a time where I said, this will be my career. Yeah, this I can make my millions with this thing. You know, this thing has commercial, value. It was never that. It was always something to share for free, or at least it wasn't a commercial or academic exercise. It was always something just to be shared because it had value, and that was it. My why is to inspire people to do what inspires them.
Yeah, so my dream was that I would do it for the rest of my life. And I believed that as a monk, I'd be able to write and teach and share and hopefully be able to share that message anywhere and everywhere. Two things happened. One was I was really pushing it and really testing myself physically. And I could see that my health was stumbling from it because I was just like trying to do all the fasts and meditating for longer, and my almost competitive ego and also competition with myself mindset constantly wanted to test. And at the same time, I started to feel like, and this was really tough, like to admit it. And I don't think I admitted it then, and it's only happened afterwards. I think that my meditation and self-awareness got me to a point where I realized I wasn't a monk, in the sense of that wasn't my path, that I felt that I wanted to share wisdom in a certain way, that I wanted to serve people in a certain way. And a big part of me felt that wouldn't be realized through that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that I knew that one day we'd have billions of views or that, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like it wasn't like numbers and it wasn't fame. It was just like, I feel this deep calling to be with people and serve in this way and share wisdom in this way and teach in this way and talk about movies in the way I talk and talk, I wanted to be immersed in mainstream culture. And as a monk, I didn't even know who won the World Cup that year. Like I had no idea. And so that was a big part of it. And then my teachers also, I think, started to see that I definitely consider myself a rebel, and I think becoming a monk is one of the most rebellious things you can do because it's totally anti-society. But I think they could see that rebelliousness in me, and they could see that I wouldn't necessarily last with that mentality as a monk. I think as a monk, it comes with certain sacred commitment. It's a sacred commitment to what you're doing. And I think I realized and they realized around the same time that it wasn't like that. And I didn't realize it at the time. I realized it in hindsight. And so when my teacher said to me that he felt that I should leave so I can share what I've learned, at that time, I hadn't yet admitted to myself that I even knew what I would do. And so that really felt like a breakup. It really felt like he was like, it's not you, it's me. It's kind of like an awkward breakup.
Right, more, less relief, more like he was condescending to you?
Correct. Like because I hadn't yet admitted it to myself, it felt like I'd failed. And I think that's why what failure actually feels like when you haven't admitted something to yourself is it feels like failure. Whereas now I look back and I go, wow, I should have felt relieved. I should have felt like someone just opened up a gateway for me to go off and be myself. And I didn't know that then.
Yeah.
So when I left, I was probably in the most depressed state of my life. I moved back in with my parents. Everyone around me now saying, we told you so, you wouldn't make it. And then,
But what is making it? Deciding to spend your entire life in the...
I think no one knows what made it mean for me, but it's what I mean is it's that perspective of like, oh, you couldn't even live as a monk. Like, why would you come back? Or like, oh, and who's going to hire you now? And I heard that over and over again. Like, how are you going to make money? Who's going to hire you? Who's going to talk to you? Like, will you be able to reintegrate? And it was hard. Like, hearing that noise as soon as you come back rather than like, oh, we're so happy to have you. Like, it wasn't like a welcoming party. And that's not my parents. My parents were very supportive. I'm talking about the external
No, I got
noise.
it. Yeah, I got it.
Well, I even fooled myself that the tools I'd learned were non-transferable. So in the immediate moment, even after having all that training,
that was useless.
I was just like, great. Like, what do I do now? And it came from, again, the noise because I applied to 40 companies. And when I say 40 companies, I mean, I sent them all specific tailored resumes and cover letters. And I got rejected from all 40 before interview.
Like ad agencies and marketing companies and investment banks?
No, I'm talking about, investment banks, financial institutions, consulting firms, strategy firms.
That's just the universe doing you a favor.
True, but I didn't know that then. Like, I was like, I can't rely on my parents forever, and my parents are not financially well off, or, so I can't just leech off of them, and I need to figure out how to make money. I'm 26 years old, and what am I going to do? So I was applying to companies that would have given me a job 3 years before, and I'm struggling, and I'm getting all these no's, and, when you're seeing rejection after rejection after rejection, you really start to question what you have. But I realized that those 3 years, and I describe it this way in the way you said it, that the 3 years being a monk were being at school. And the last 7 years since I've left have been the exam. And I can genuinely say so far that every tool that I have tested from my monk toolkit works. And the biggest one, or most likely the most powerful one that I felt is, there's a beautiful verse in the Manusmriti I talk about in the book. And it says that when you protect your purpose protects you. And what I mean by that, and I will broaden purpose to mean what it needs to mean for anyone listening, you have to protect your strengths, your calling, your passions, your interests, your skills. You have to protect them like a precious jewel, because the whole world will come at you and tell you that it's not a jewel. The whole world will come at you and tell you that it's worth nothing. And if you don't protect it, it can't protect your value back. And most of us, as soon as we get questioned, we just chuck the jewel out. We just chuck it away and we go, oh yeah, that wasn't worth anything. And then later on in life, you realize you threw away a precious jewel. So I love that verse because that's what I was being tested to do. Is I was about to go sell myself short and just go back into the world that I came from and just chuck out that jewel, rather than like, hey, I learned all these things. I wanted to serve. I became a monk because I wanted to serve. How can I still serve? How can I not just throw that all out and pretend that it doesn't matter? And how can I apply the discipline and the mentality and all of the great skills? Because guess what? When, surprise, surprise, no one wants to hire someone with monk on their resume for 3 years, and that's what I had. because they couldn't see the transferable skills. I had to see them. That's when I hear that people are dissatisfied with their jobs and their companies, my biggest question is, have you learned everything you possibly could from that place? Because the truth is, you could find a lot more meaning and passion in a place that you don't want to be in, because you realize it could be the answer and key to what you could do in the future. And there is so much to gain.
One day I was browsing on YouTube and I found this video, this random couple talking about how they have freedom of traveling and working wherever they want, getting paid quite well as software engineers. I felt like they have everything that I don't have. I'm in this cubicle every single day, working more than 8 hours every single day for the job that I don't care and getting paid bare minimum. I was so envious of them. And I hated that I was telling myself that you can't do that. You can't have that freedom yourself. And the pain of staying the same got bigger than the pain of changing my life, that I was able to tell myself, you can do this. You can create the life that has so much freedom like they do. I decided to become a software engineer, which I had no idea what it is. I had no idea what software engineers do. I had no idea about coding, programming, like all these words related to software engineering were new to me, but it didn't scare me because it was more scary to stay in the same position in my life. And a year later, I achieved my dream. I found a job as a software engineer in Ireland. And you might be thinking that I should have been like super happy and super ecstatic and I felt achieved. The truth is, I wasn't happy. I didn't know why back then, but I didn't really feel like I achieved something. So I started asking myself, well, maybe because it's the weather. In Ireland, it's always grey, it rains often, so that affects my mood, right? So maybe that's the weather. Maybe that's my visa situation because I was waiting for my working visa to actually live and work in Ireland. And maybe it's the salary. I wasn't getting paid a lot. It was kind of minimum, better than what I used to get paid in Tokyo, but it was still not much. So maybe that. And a year later, I moved to Spain, where the weather is much nicer and food and people are like super amazing. And I get to study Spanish. Like, I was really excited to learn a new language. So I thought my life was going to be much better, but it wasn't the case. Even though I wasn't living in this dream city, Barcelona, and I was studying Spanish and I was meeting amazing people, I felt there was always something like emptiness in my heart. And I had no idea what it was. And the questions that I was asking myself were, why are you so ungrateful? You have everything you dreamt of, you have everything you need, and you're not happy. Maybe you're just not grateful enough. Why are you taking everything for granted? You should be happy. You should be grateful for everything you have. Guess what I did? I tripled down on my gratitude journal. I was writing 10 things that I'm grateful for every single morning. Yes, it did improve my mental health, but that didn't fill the emptiness or void I was feeling in my heart. And then I couldn't get working visa in Spain, so I had to come back to Japan, which was actually good for me because I missed my family, I missed living in Japan. So I came back to Tokyo and I found even better job. And I was actually getting paid a double of what I used to paid back in Ireland. So that was motivating, but I still was feeling the void and the emptiness in my heart, and I felt like there's something wrong with me. You know, I'm just so ungrateful. I should be happy. And I kept telling the same things and asking myself same questions. But that wasn't helping because I was resisting the reality and I was resisting the fact that I was not happy. Resisting the fact that I had this void and emptiness inside of my heart. And I had a moment to look back and how I felt in the last few years living in Ireland, living in Spain. I felt like I really need to sit down with myself and ask questions to really understand what's going on. But I felt like I wasn't ready. And the good thing that I did was I kept reading personal development books and I kept listening to amazing people, inspiring people to learn from. And I started hearing these words: purpose, dharma, ikigai. And I didn't understand what they mean, but I just kept hearing these over and over again. So I felt like I finally found the solution, finally found the answer to my problem, my void, my emptiness that I've been feeling for many years. And I listened to how other people found their purpose, and there was a pattern. Their why never actually changed, but there were some hints and lessons that they could learn from the past, and it was kind of guiding them to find their purpose, to get aligned with their purpose. So I kept reading books and learn about purpose, how I can find my purpose and how I can live on my purpose. And I had some coaching sessions to really get to know myself. And then a few years later, I found my purpose. I started creating my life in a way that's aligned with my why. And then that emptiness, that void that I was feeling started to evaporate. And now I am so fulfilled by what I do. And I'm a life coach, and I'm also a teacher and mentor, energy healer. And I love helping people through my wisdom. I love helping people through my coaching. And that makes me feel so happy and so fulfilled. It's because I know it's aligned with my purpose, my ikigai.